Okay, I think we'll get started. We know it's a tough room to find, so we gave a few extra minutes for people to find the room. But so welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Audrey Marcus from ProQuest, Vice President of Product and Operations for what we call our books business. And I'm really excited to be here today with our panelists. As an aggregator, we're in a very interesting position where we equally hear feedback from the library market, but also the publisher market. And we thought it was a good opportunity in having conversations to attempt to bridge that conversation, particularly around pain points focused on selection. And I certainly hear lots of different pain points from both sides, and I think it would be a very interesting topic. So we decided to get together, and very happy it's a lively discussion, so I hope everyone will be lively and ask questions and provide feedback and thoughts. But I will let my colleagues here introduce themselves, starting with Sarah.
All right, I'm Sarah Hates-Sanabria. I'm Head of Collections and Technical Services at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas.
I'm Ellen Safely. I'm the Dean of Libraries at the University of Texas at Dallas, which is about 10 miles from where she works.
I live closer
in a completely different library.
Very different
setting. It couldn't be more different.
We can try harder, but yeah.
Krista Colson, University of Chicago Press. I am apologizing to everyone right now. I'm getting over a cold, so if I cough and try to hawk around my cough drop, sorry for that.
I'm Lisa Noctegal, and I'm the Director of Global Library Resellers at Oxford University Press.
I'm Lenny Allen. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director for Bloomsbury Digital Resources, and my mother lives in Dallas.
So we like Texas. Okay, well, thank you. So open to have this conversation go in any direction it goes, but we thought we would start with buying models, particularly for our publishing friends. And one of the most common questions I hear is, how do you decide what titles will be offered in a given model, with probably some specific questions around how do you decide if it's a course book or a monograph? I'll let that go from there. So which of you would like to start with that one?
I'll go first. Just toss it out there. For our books, this is perhaps a little heavily skewed toward the exact process we use. The marketing department is talking about many different things about the book with acquisitions and the authors. The authors are filling out questionnaires, giving us feedback on whether they think a book is going to be course adopted or not, who might use it in courses, what kinds of courses. When our manuscript transmits from the acquisitions department into production, we have a meeting with all hands on deck. And we cover a large number of things like what will the title be, what is the publication date we're going to strive for. And at that same time, we talk a little bit about ebooks and the ebook marketplace and how we think we need to position it. So we consider the author's opinion on course adoption, and marketing usually weighs in with their opinion on the course adoption market, and we talk to the editor. And for us, for Chicago, if we feel it will be heavily course adopted, and for us, that is an important revenue stream. We price down for books we think will be course adopted so that they get into students' hands. But we then need them to go out into the retail marketplace and sell. So then we flag that in our internal metadata. And what that means for you, I'm sorry to say, is that for our heavily course adopted books, we don't sell them as an ebook into the library. And I'm hoping at some point we can change this. We just haven't figured out a good solution that we're comfortable with around it. For books that we don't think are heavily course adopted, they're lightly course adopted. Maybe they'll be course adopted. Notably, ethnographies are in this. We know that they can be course adopted, and we don't have any way to know which ethnography is going to be the one that becomes course adopted. We try and put them into single user, just again to help preserve this revenue stream that's extremely important to us as we continue to publish. And the majority of our books, though, don't fall into either of those categories, and we just make them multi-user. And I try very hard to keep a level playing field amongst all of our ebook sellers. The University of Chicago Press doesn't sell, we don't have a platform, so we don't sell to libraries on our own platform, and for me, that makes it all the more important to have the same price with the same available models with all of our aggregators that we work with. My feeling is in the marketplace, maybe there's too many options, but the selection for libraries should be based on how good a service you're getting, what is the platform doing for your students and your needs. You shouldn't be forced to buy on a specific platform for a price. So that's how I approach it.
Lisa or Lenny, want to?
Yeah, I'll pick up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's interesting, sort of when you think about the differences between the University of Chicago Press and OUP and what Krista was describing as the initial process, sort of becomes a question of scale. And at OUP, where we're not sitting and talking about each individual title as it goes into the system, we rely on our editors to make that initial determination as to whether or not it is likely to be a course book or is it more likely to be an academic research. And this is where it comes to that art-science tension in a way. Clearly what we're talking about, just to make sure that we're all kind of using the same definitions, we are not talking about truly higher ed undergraduate textbooks. We're talking about those kinds of books that many of you already buy anyway or would like to buy in a digital format. And I think it has become one of the big challenges for publishers to be able to know in advance which of those titles are going to be adopted. And just because they're adopted at one university doesn't mean they're going to be adopted at another university. And how we make sure that we can satisfy your need to buy everything that your library would typically have been buying in print, while we also can allow for the fact that many of those books will get purchased through an admittedly decreasing retail market directly to the students. So I think that challenge is very sort of live right now, and looking at different models that might allow for an up-use charge when we know that a title is being adopted at a particular institution, if that title is already in the catalog, and the ability to sort of turn it on with more usage if the library has been brought into that process of providing course books. And I think that's one of the other shifts that we're looking at in the market now. Do the libraries actually have funding to provide what would typically be considered a course book? And if not, how are we making that content available? But again, like Krista said, most of what we're doing is trying to get most of our academic content out into the widest number of models available at all usage levels with price differentiators to help you have choices. And for those books that we have anticipated to be adopted titles, we will hold those back at a limited use model.
I don't have that much to add. I mean, the process is very similar. I think to go back to Lisa's point about art versus science, it's probably, I mean, as you can tell from the process, a little bit more, I would say it definitely skews more towards art than science, because every single book is an individual thing. So it's not like you can say, I mean, you can try to say this book is like these books that we published in the past, so we're looking at, you have this kind of historical record and data to base your decision on. But of course, there, again, there's author input, there's editorial input. So because it is more art than science, I think the other question that comes up is what happens when you set aside a title for course adoption and you don't make it available initially, and then a couple of years goes by and you don't actually see those adoptions bearing out. So that's another question. So it's not a perfect system, although we try as much as we can to perfect it. It's sort of, in some ways, I think, imperfectible. But I think that's part of the point of experimenting with different models.
One of the aspects of that I think is not something there's a ready workflow for is this revisiting ebook models. I mean, and this is where, even though ebooks have been around for 20 years, it still is very new. And we don't have like an at-scale way to bring staff time to bear to reevaluate. At our press, we don't have the bandwidth. We're focused on continually publishing those books. And so it's something that I think we could do better, and we've begun discussions about how we can do it, but it's a bit laborious. The other thing is, you know, when do you really make that call? Right? Some books, it's 5 years before you see the course adoptions really start. And on the print side, course adoptions are very murky because Amazon doesn't share data about who's buying or if they're EDU addresses, or and there's a lot of other vendors that don't tell us, and so we're looking for cycles of buying that indicate a pattern of course use. Very TBC.
And it's very challenging if it's a press that does not have that traditional higher ed channel where maybe there's actually a sales team taking some of these titles out to the faculty. Otherwise, you're just waiting to see a spike in Amazon sales, and you have, or you get anecdote from the author that, oh, this book is being adopted.
We hear from professors.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, sorry, I just wanted to maybe wrap up the publisher side by also reiterating the fact that, I mean, the reason for this kind of, for that decision-making process, as imperfect as it is because, and I think one of you might have touched on this, those course adoptions in print are often supporting, I mean, monograph publishing is something that is really crucial to the scholarly communications ecosystem, but not, it doesn't necessarily, it's not going to support an entire publishing program, but course adoptions do that, and they help support the monograph publishing program.
So Ellen or Sarah, what challenges on your side as librarians and managing a library do you have in trying to navigate this course book versus monograph?
Well, I often don't know that I'm navigating it.
I would agree that to that.
You know, there's nothing in Gobi or anything else that says course adopted book. It's just, we get a request for a book, we look for it. It's not available in a model that would work for the anticipated use that we have. So we either buy print, or we buy both, or we just wait and see what happens.
I don't ever really try to wait. So if I get asked for a book, I usually buy it right then and there.
True, I mean wait as in like buy one, and then is there going to be demand to warrant buying additional copies?
We don't buy additional copies, so we might also duplicate online or print, but we're not really going for duplicate copies. And I would say most of my buying is electronic, except for my history faculty refuses to migrate to online unless I make them, which, you know, I don't want to make, I don't make them, but generally they want print. The students, faculty can ask for a book. They recommend a format. If I think it's going to be in a high use area, I would buy more seats or more access to the ebook. That's a coin flip, really. And I don't necessarily know. You know, sometimes the online book, you know, with access could be $1,000. I saw one of these the other day, and I'm not paying $1,000. I don't have that money. So I try to make the most of the money, and generally I'm looking for the best book in a topic or a known item.
So throughout all the answers to that question, I consistently heard a common theme about, I think Christy said, are there too many options? And I heard, you know, the different buying of ebook options. As we've moved towards alphabet soup of ebook buying options, are there too, addressed to the whole bit, are there too many options?
Well, I think one of the things that we're taking a look at for our own platform right now, the OUP ebook offer allows for single users, subscriptions, unlimited usage, 3 usage, and I think there was some actually interesting statistics shown at the ProQuest luncheon, for those of us who ran across town, to sort of take a look at what really kind of different use is actually out there. And I think it becomes a question for the librarians in the room. Are there too many options? You know, if you can't pay $1,000, that's pretty high, for an unlimited use to a book, does additional use warrant higher pricing, right? If we think about generally these books as being relatively low-use books, because that's essentially what we publish, is single usage okay, or is unlimited usage okay because it's not going to get overused? So this kind of inherent fear that many of our editors, and I will put it on them rather than those of us at the table, that our editors feel is actually doesn't really bear out when you look at the data. Things like NLL maybe made sense 15 years ago, sorry to raise it, but how does it play up against unlimited usage, right? And I think that there are some comparables to be looking at. 1 user and 3 user, do we need to have 1, 3, NLL, and unlimited? I think that becomes a question for how the librarians are managing your spend and how you use those differences in the different pricing to manage your acquisition.
I mean, yeah, I'd be curious to hear the librarian
Can
side of
everyone
that.
hear me? Do we need to use our
I'm not
mic?
sure it's working, we just went to get some help.
Oh,
there.
Can you
Just
not
gotta
hear
bring
in
it
the back?
closer. With this going on,
What? I don't even hear it. I can't even hear you. We need to perk it up in here.
Yeah,
Right.
No, it does. Okay.
Just talk into it.
Okay.
Eat it.
That's what they said. I mean, I feel like if you started pulling back on options, there would be more, I think you would get more pushback on that, because my impression has always been that, you know, it's like you want more options, not fewer. I mean, I think part of the issue is the way that we categorize different types of content. I mean, I think that's the sticking point. So one thing that we run up against, I'm not sure if my colleagues might get the same thing, but so you don't make it, you know, you decide this title is going to be set aside for course adoption marketing, and we don't make it available as an unlimited use ebook. And then, you know, it's like I get emails sent to me like, where is this book? We want this book, it's not available. And because it's not clear anywhere, because it's not available as an ebook, so it doesn't have, you know, it doesn't have the right type of annotation or metadata attached to it. It's not immediately clear to the librarian why we've held it back and what category we consider it. So I think that's a place where there's definitely some room for an improvement in the way we communicate information about what we're publishing.
I would, apologies, I'll wait. Thank you. I would add, I wouldn't mind if there were a few contractions in the number of models. There's just a lot of data to handle. Recognizing that I have my own bias, right? And I'm trying to reflect on my time as a scholar, coming out of graduate school, how was I using materials, and thinking about my publisher hat on, what it makes sense as a strategy to, you know, be able to continue to publish books. I have decided that we don't sell in the nonlinear lending because it seemed to me too much like an unlimited user model at a single user price. Given our monographs are used not very often, so they would never hit those triggers. So I tried to think through critically what seems to be similar and what maybe I don't have to, you know, one model I don't have to worry about. But also I want experimentation. So, you know, this question of DDA, EBA, to me these are also, they're sort of the core same model, using data to select with experimentation happening around it. And over time, right, what I would expect is there's change, and it would kind of solidify into something a little more concrete and hopefully less complicated. I wouldn't mind if the 3-user model went bye-bye. I didn't have to worry about that price and the metadata, but we're not stopping offering it, even though we see very few sales in the model. Pragmatic approach.
weigh in. Yeah. Do you want to weigh in first?
I'll weigh in first. So I look at a lot of data. I'm pretty sure Sarah does too. And I don't know of anything that has a, I'm trying. I don't know of any statistical package that tells me how many times books are used at the same time in a 3-book model. Okay, so I don't have that data. Maybe you have it. So when I pick how many seats I'm going to buy of a book, it's a crapshoot. I'm assuming that maybe if somebody asks me for the book, they'll say, I'm going to use it in a class of 60. Okay, that gives me a little bit of data about how it would be used. I never really get that either. I just want the book here by September 1, Ellen. So I don't have the data. I can't tell how the book was used once I bought it. I can tell it was used, but not how many times simultaneously it was used. Was it worth that extra money that I paid?
Let's make sure we don't hit your glasses. All right. I would say I also don't see a need for lots and lots of different multi-use. Oh my goodness.
Does it need a stand? Does it just take
I'll just hold it.
Wait, don't let Audrey get on the floor.
Okay. So another thing that I have to worry about with this is how many of you have trained a new acquisitions assistant and had that person say, what is nonlinear? All right, and if this person has ever taken a math class and know the meaning of the word nonlinear, they're going to be even more confused. Like, why would you apply that to the name of a way to buy an ebook? And I don't know the answer to that. And I just tell them it's goofy and that's how it is. Sorry, welcome to your new job. Thank you for coming to work today.
The checks.
Right. So, to me, I have a hard time articulating to myself when I would want nonlinear versus unlimited. And so we typically tell our acquisition staff, just buy that one that says NLL, because we're probably not going to run up against the limit and it's cheaper. So actually, good point there, Kristen. If it was University of Chicago Press, I'm sure we buy unlimited. Because we never buy 3 user. We just don't. Because I don't know about Ellen, but I also get very sketchy information about why a book is needed. I can tell from the time that it's requested whether it's likely to support a course or not. But we tried for a while. We're like, let's go back and ask all those faculty what they're going to use that for. Our response rate was very, very low. A lot of them just ignored us and are like, my research and teaching, obviously. So I only buy a 1 user if I think that it is something, if I can see from the title that it is extremely specialized, and I can tell maybe if it's been sitting in my DDA pool for a long time that maybe the 1 user is going to be just fine. But I'm either buying 1 user or I'm buying nonlinear because I don't think 3 user is meaningful. And maybe some of the, if you guys out there have, does anyone have strong feelings about 3 user?
Save the 3 user.
Save the 3 user, going once, going twice, okay. Done. So I would also say about, just the proliferation of models, that one of the most difficult things for us to explain to our faculty is why we can or cannot acquire a specific book in the format they want. Unlike Ellen's history folks, the only folks on our campus who want print are art history and musicology. And that's for good reason. It's kind of hard to, I know. I used to be an art historian, just like Lenny. And you need to look at the pictures. You're going to flip back and forth. But, oh my gosh. It's after lunch, guys. I'm sorry. Multiple models. Oh, right. So explain to folks why I can't buy them what they want. And then I contact the vendor and I find out, oh, well, that's available to you if you have $60,000 to plunk into an EBA plan with us. And I'm just like, excuse me, do you know what my budget is?
Higher than mine.
Well, not my book budget. So then I have to just go back to the faculty and say, I know you wanted that ebook that would have been perfect for you to share with your students in the online course you're developing, but we can buy it for you in print.
That's interesting. I just said, I've never heard of that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
No, not print, but like, I mean, either a title's available in a certain format or it's not. It's not.
Right, or, well, here's another one that we
I've
did.
never heard of it,
Here's another
where it's
one.
only available via a model.
Different
Well,
publisher.
Like a
Oxford does
DDA.
this, I think.
Would it,
If
No.
it's part of a collection, sometimes I can't buy that book because I have to buy the collection.
well,
And that
actually,
might be old, I don't know, but,
well, I'm happy to change that knowledge.
okay.
But that's on our own platform. Oh,
Yeah, here it comes.
Seems like a better.
Here,
Oh, yeah, there we go.
That's better.
I can really get it.
can we get it around?
I'm gonna hold these.
There we go. Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that is what your experience had been.
Okay.
On our own platform, we did have certain product or title collections where the titles were only available by collection, and we've actually actively moved away from that.
Okay, good.
So that titles would be available either on a title-by-title basis or as a collection. And as a result, we're now able to send those titles out to the aggregator platforms, also for title-by-title availability. So,
Yay.
Yay. We listen,
Hey, Lisa.
you know.
I don't even work at
You can be
Oxford
fools.
anymore, and I fixed that problem for you, so.
Thanks, Lenny.
But could I just follow up,
Yeah.
Audrey, on a question on something that Sarah was saying? It was interesting when you were talking about how a faculty member coming and asking you for a book, and based on your timing, you could
Kind of
kind of
guess.
infer that maybe it's going to be used for a course. Where's the bookstore at your university fitting into that discussion? Did the faculty come to you so that the students don't have to buy it at the bookstore? Was it part of a day one inclusive access program?
Typically,
What?
yeah. Oh, careful. Typically, that's because they want to put it on reserve.
For reserve?
So it's part of a supplementary reading list is what we most commonly get. You can tell by the rather specialized nature of the title.
Right.
But no, we are not as much part of the campus bookstore discussion as we might like to be. We were just talking about Barnes & Noble and their first day program at lunch. And how many people have Barnes & Noble first day operating at their campus that they know about?
What is?
So,
people have
yes,
heard
I'll
of
be
that.
happy to tell. First, I had to do a lot of research about this for my dean just a few weeks ago, so I know a lot about it all of a sudden. But Barnes & Noble and Barnes & Noble Academic, in case you had not followed that news item, are now two separate companies. Barnes & Noble Academic still supplies bookstores on campuses. They're the ones that your university likely has a contract with to supply the books for the bookstore. This year, they rolled out what they're calling their first day program. It appears to be a response to the inclusive access where a specific publisher negotiates with a consortium or a group of schools to provide that school's texts as, cheap or free for students to use. So the first day program, Barnes & Noble Academic says, faculty, you just tell us what you want to teach. We'll go out to the publishers and we'll license that. And then we'll bundle it all up and we will stick it into your learning management system so that when your student logs into Math 1100 for the first time and clicks into it, they will see the texts that you, Dr. So-and-so, have said they need to succeed in this class. So it's being sold as a way to keep costs down because it's definitely cheaper for those students than if they went out and bought all the books. I think it's supposed to be at least. It gets automatically billed to their student account, which they can use their student loans against. And, and their access vanishes the day that they're done with the class. So that's first day.
With rental.
And none of it,
It's
nobody-
textbook rental.
subscription.
And we only heard about it because our dean got invited to a meeting and the Barnes & Noble manager wanted to get very friendly with her and said that they needed to collaborate a lot. She was like, really? Well, now I know why. Because we were, like many of you, trying to get more of a textbook reserve lending program operational at our library to help decrease costs for first year students. For the high enrollment classes, we're looking at having at least one copy of the textbook that is on reserve. Just because that seems like a thing we should do, like one copy, right?
We do
Does
that,
that sound
but not through the Barnes and Noble. We buy the core textbooks for undergraduates in paper, one copy. It's not used as much as you would think it would be, at least not at UT Dallas. But we have something to point to that we can say we contributed to student success and make sure that their faculty member is aware that the book is on reserve in the building. Not online, just paper.
So in the audience, is anyone revisiting do we have too many buying models, or do we actually not have enough to meet the unique needs of different universities? Thoughts around, agreed with the panel, or other experiences? Yeah.
Gobi's not in the house today. Just as an example, Gobi can't, when I export records from Gobi, I can only export the first 6 models that are available. My Excel spreadsheet leaves off, if you're the ProQuest Unlimited license and you happen to be the 8th one in the list, you're not going to end up in my spreadsheet. So, I mean, their systems aren't even set up for, it seems to say 6 is enough. Which would be awesome. I mean, I've been buying books for 20 years. It's never been more difficult.
What do you do with the spreadsheet?
Oh, I run it through macros, and mash up usage data with it, or ebook package collection data with it to find zero-use titles, to find do some subject analysis, pricing analysis, get rid of the all caps.
So is it
You don't like it to yell at you? No. That's one way we can solve metadata challenges. We can have our metadata not yell at us. Sorry.
So is the complexity or the difficulties, is it the business models, or is it the proliferation of access points?
Well, it's not even just that. I can't buy the license I want. There's 8 licenses, but none of them I can buy.
But none of them match the need.
Yeah.
That's been articulated to you by your folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Students say, "Are you stupid that you can only use one copy? What do you mean one copy of an electronic thing? That's like
We
ridiculous."
said we're not dumb. It's just the only thing we can buy.
Yeah.
It's like your model, whatever, the Ford that you could only buy in one color with one set of options. Yes.
I was at a session this morning and they were going through 17 different ebook models for all of them, and platforms. And it appears, I've never really noticed it, but a lot of them do a lot of different things that people seem to want. But I don't ask students, to be honest, did you like this feature? And I did some surveys early on. Do you like this feature? Do you like this platform or this other platform? And Ellen, I just want the book. I want to own the book. Sarah asked, said something close. They want what they want when they want it, right? Something about what features you would want to use. I have a lot of people asking me, I just want to load it in my Kindle and I want to keep it forever. Well, that would be ownership, and that would be you purchase, but you know, they ask, and you know, they're interested. So I never can give them what they really want, which is for me to buy what they want to read. That's terrible to say that. But the bottom line is they want to own it, not necessarily borrow it. And the other thing I have is a lot of data management, data mining of things. So I have a very, very large computer science program at UT Dallas. And they are always looking for something to data mine for some assignment that they have. So they usually pick a commercial product without telling us that they're doing it, so they can just do their assignment. And triggers go off at maybe not these publishers, but I'm hated at the American Chemical Society as an example. Because I'm always, and IEEE is, hates us too. Because they are actually trying to do their assignment, and they're not trying to use the book. They're just trying to, whatever their assignment. Mine a data set, mine a database, get data out. Become an expert hacker. Maybe.
So for the publishers, what challenges or resource constraints do you have around trying to properly support all of these options? And potentially, maybe we need less, but maybe we need more. What does that do for you?
Sorry. Something that I've been really spending the last several months working on, working on with some colleagues at OUP is trying to identify the metadata hooks that we can use to help you understand what you're buying and why the models are being applied the way they are. Again, it becomes an art and a science because the metadata, those labels might exist, but a person needs to assign them. And once you give a person a list of 35 options in any one metadata facet, you get usage, you get assignments that really are all over the place. And so we might be sitting in this room thinking that we're all talking about monographs, but I can tell you from some research I've recently done that when I look at the Onyx category of product type, I think it is, for all of the books that we have in Oxford Scholarship Online, you've got monograph, you've got research, you've got undergraduate, you've got so many different choices. And one of the challenges that I'm trying to deal with is how we can use some of those data hooks more effectively to help create our collections, to help allow you to understand why this book is available in a particular model, because in fact the Onyx says that it is a course book. And that consistency of data is the biggest challenge that I think we as publishers have.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add that metadata takes up a huge amount of resource, and we now have 2 librarians on staff, one who is primarily involved in the dissemination of metadata, delivery of metadata to discovery services, because that's so enormously critical to the discovery of our content. And then we have another librarian on the sales operations side. Basically, I mean, it's not just that she's answering questions about why is this book not available, but that's part of it. And there's so many layers of that, understanding what is happening with different categories of titles that are going through different channels, and ensuring that there is as little friction as possible in the dissemination of that content and the metadata.
So the challenges at the University of Chicago Press, not to put too fine a point on it, all seem to come back to money. We're a nonprofit press that the university expects to give something back to campus, so we support ourselves as best we can. I think I skipped saying I'm the senior manager of digital publications, right? So I run the ebook program there, and I'm a department of 1, and as of last year, I got 1 full-time assistant. So I do all of our vendor management, ebook strategy. I'm doing pilot projects to increase accessibility of our ebooks by doing image descriptions, rolling out that new workflow, experimenting with audiobooks. I review all of our metadata to make sure that it's as correct as it can be. All of those things are happening by me. So when it comes down to multiple models, I do my best to memorize them and develop a logic for how I'm approaching them, and then just try and repeat it, I think in the same way everyone who's too busy tries to get through their day. The things that, and this is kind of coming back to this question of single user, the frustration of not having just it available is, I'm trying to look at our whole business program and figure out how we can keep publishing books. If the University of Chicago has a good year, that money gets squirreled away to supplement for a bad year so that we can continue to publish our monographs, which frequently don't earn back the money we spend on them. And so I have to look, I do ebooks, but I'm looking at the whole profile of a book and the profile of our publishing. We think now on the ebook side, our revenue, 40% of it comes from libraries, but our entire revenue, 20% of that is ebooks. So library purchasing in ebooks is a pretty small percentage of our revenue, and that's why I keep talking about being protective of these other sales, is because we can't just give completely open access, because if there is, as everybody keeps telling us, these digital natives are going to come and they're going to use ebooks all the time and never use print, we're really going to be screwed. And so that's partly why that frustration is there, and I'm sorry for it. We're trying to balance it as best we can. But in an ecosystem where education is not being funded appropriately, this is kind of what we're all struggling through.
So since,
go
ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah? Oh.
Did you ever try to come up with your own pricing model based on the various, I know they were called different things depending on whether you're doing ProQuest or EBSCO or whatever, where you said, this is what I'm willing to do, and then like handing it off to them to say, these are my terms for supplying content.
I mean, in what sense? What do you mean?
Like,
We always set our own prices.
no, not just the prices, but like the multipliers.
We always
that-
set our own multipliers.
But in my experience, I get a contract from an aggregator with some baseline, and they're not always apples to apples between one and the other. And as you're trying to like navigate those with one person, or maybe a person like myself that does it 20% of the time, it occurred to me, like, why am I trying to fit into their model when I should be sending them what I'm willing to do and ask them to adapt to that?
I'm going to try and answer this.
I don't know
If
if
I
it's
haven't
too big.
hit your point, you let me know.
Okay, all right.
So we have a complicated pricing rubric at the University of Chicago Press. We have a retail price, and that's what we're selling on Amazon, and it's usually tied to paperback, right? And this is where I was saying our course adoption books, where we are getting these in the hand of our students, we actually price them very low. And they're that low in the retail price, and we do that on the paperback side too, because we really want them to go out. We have an institutional price, that's the single user price, and we have a multi-user price. It is true that the relationship between the single user price and the multi-user price kind of, when all of the ebook platforms were launching, there was a common escalator, and I think almost all publishers have stayed with that, but we're looking at changing that now.
Because
We
it's
need
not
to go
just
out,
the
unfortunately.
escalator, it's the percentage of which they're going to pay out to you too. So
Or are
like,
you talking about our business terms with ProQuest?
yeah, or like any of them. I guess that's like part of what I'm hearing in terms of what you can have access to. That's the part of this that we can't talk about like in too much detail. It's not just the price or the escalator, it's like actually what we get back.
I mean, there's laws that you can't offer specific better terms to, a certain,
True.
Yeah, I think the other part of the answer to that is that the relationship that a publisher has with ProQuest or any of the other aggregated platforms is one part of the business relationship, and that's the one that we control. But the relationship that the aggregator has with the library and the terms of that relationship are between you and the aggregator and are not anything that we control.
And there are also,
And that's because of the nature of the fact that it's a reseller distribution relationship. And that's whether it's print sales, whether it's print sales, ebook sales, the price that you negotiate with your partner is something that the publisher is not involved with. We only control the terms that determine what we get back from the aggregator.
So,
and I was going to say, I think that's pretty standard across publishers and aggregators. But in addition to Lisa's comment that we don't control how you work with the aggregator, we also generally don't.
I'm in publishing.
Yeah.
I'm not, I work at a university publisher.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Okay, good. Well, we'll stop educating you on that. Did we get your question, or is there something
Well,
else?
so this is it, and I'll let it die, but, so for instance, the collection models, whether you're with Project Muse or, UPCC or whatever, they all have a variable that you don't know what that's gonna be, like, you don't know, and so we sign these contracts giving them some information that they're gonna use to pay us out, but there's a variable in all those collection models that they don't share, that they determine at the board level for Muse or for, UPCC, so,
This is about collections,
well,
and the bargaining.
yeah,
about
like how
buying
do
as a big
you,
package.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, that's different.
That's okay.
yeah, sorry.
My quick answer is no. I figure I'm not the one in the sales room. My partner needs to be able to make deals. We're just really starting to move a little bit more into collections and experiment with them. Previously, again, I feel really like maybe a little lame about being sincere about this. I really try and keep the level playing field between the different vendors. And so what I've always tried to do is our net receipts from a sale are the same no matter where we get it from for ebooks. And the collections make that hard because I'm not in the room. I don't know what deals are being struck. Presumably people are looking at print books that have already been purchased by the library and giving extra discount for that, and looking at school size and giving discounts for that. But we don't know. We don't see that. All we get with the collection model is kind of here's your lump sum for the collection, and then we divide it by the number of books in the collection and put it in our system. So
No, I mean, that's
haven't.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Have you
Yeah,
taken any more control?
Yeah, no, I think
That's the question, it's how much control.
Do you have any questions or comments?
We don't buy a lot of collections because I don't need everything in the collection, or I don't think I do. And when I have, because we buy a lot of things consortially through the University of Texas system, my usage in a package is very uneven, and it is a monetary problem. I can't afford to buy everything that is in that collection, so I just have to go what I think I know, and then buy anything that is requested separately, or there's a demand for one title, I just hope that I can buy it.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. We do not have a big monographs budget. We do not buy big packages, big collections of books. So the least interesting sales email I received is, look at our new ebook collection on topic X. Because I'm just not going to buy that. If people tell me they need books, I will go get them those books. Or I will look at the usage data for their DDA, or the EBA or whatever, and I'll make a decision based on that. And every now and then it has, I think maybe once, it turned out that a collection like that was a good investment for us. But that is typically not how we are buying. Even in areas where we're looking to backfill or build new collections, we'd much rather be targeted with those dollars and get what people actually need or are going to actually use.
So if you don't buy these, the aggregators create these, as I understand it, they create packages that say, oh, these are the literary books and you can purchase these or some other topic. If you're not getting those, we have these new seasons of books that come out. How do you decide, of all these books that come out, how do you decide then, if you're not buying packages, how do you decide which ones you're going to buy? Is it really just if somebody puts in a specific request for a book?
Well, we got two ways to do it. One is we throw it into DDA.
And what's that?
Demand-driven acquisitions.
Okay.
So if it's available as DDA, we're going to throw it into the pool, and if a patron uses it,
Okay.
it will trigger purchase.
Right.
We like that. We still have a couple of areas in the humanities and social sciences where we have very active selectors. So we are pulling back moderately from having selectors really involved in individual acquisition. But in the monograph heavy disciplines, we are not able to pull back on that to the extent that we might like to. So we do still have essentially subject bibliographers with teaching duties, research duties, selecting title by title in those areas.
have people selecting title by title. I have people putting things into a DDA program. I have a consortial variety of the same thing. I know some collection, I at least know of one collection that I buy, lecture notes in computer science. We're graduating more computer science people. It is used just all the time, but it is very rare. In the beginning, maybe 10 years ago, I was buying collections from Wiley, but not an aggregator. It was Wiley Publications. And then you look at the data, and I just can't afford to do that anymore. It was easy, you know, just sign the check, but it wasn't easy to justify it.
We have the same experience.
I'm actually curious about how many people in the room are still, like how much interest is there in collections versus, or is it always title by title, given the option?
Title by title takes too much time.
So you're into collections?
I'm actually declining my interest in collections as well because I can't afford zero-use titles. So I'm trying to move towards a robust approval plan that will cover my subject matter and go with requests. Because I do all STEM disciplines in a research-intensive university.
Do you do DDA or EBA?
No, well, we haven't had reliable technical infrastructure in our institution. We didn't trust the ability to add and subtract large numbers of records in our systems. EBA looks kind of cool.
You just love to go look at those titles at the end of it.
Yeah.
But that's it's a data set that I can add to my other data sets and help me make decisions. And so I know at least there's going to be one use for most of the stuff that I buy.
How about other folks in the room leaning more towards collection sales or title by title or something else?
It's all publishers.
I mean, we saw some data earlier about the kind of resurgence of firm ordering, which of course made me happy to see. And so one of the follow-up questions to that for me was what was driving that firm ordering? Was it an increased approval plan? Sort of, again, a resurgence of approval purchasing? Was it sort of title by title requests from faculty? Sort of, how was firm swinging back in that sort of pendulum of purchasing decisions? Anybody increasing their firm?
So I'll throw a follow-up question onto that. Oh, you're going to answer
No,
that?
it's okay, let's have the follow-up. Let's hear it.
So how much, if any, do some amount of metrics or performance metrics of previous purchase titles inform any future purchases or changes? Could that be why firm is having a pickup, which I agree with Lisa, it is?
Why, yes, it does.
Yeah, so just like Ellen, we looked at, with us we had, I think it was Springer. We purchased Springer, everything they published, year by year for like 8 years. And it always seemed like such a great deal when you looked at the cost per title. But then when you looked at the cost per use and you accounted for all of those titles, we're much heavier in liberal arts and humanities than UT Dallas is. So for us, honestly, Springer was probably a bad choice to start with. I was not in place at that time. But when we look at data, it's not just Springer. It's, we see it across publishers. We see it across content types. When you just buy everything, it's easy. And by title, it's affordable. But when you look at the cost per use, when you look at the usage you're getting and all the stuff that's just sitting out there in your catalog, that no one will probably ever use, it's not a good way to spend our funds. And so I think that's why our pendulum, for us at least, has swung back toward approval plan, firm ordering, DDA, where we know that there's an actual person on the other side of that in our user base who wants that item and is going to use it.
Anyone else in the room?
It's all publishers.
Yeah.
Take it, Paul, come on out.
All be public.
How many publishers are here?
So librarians, raise your hands so we know there are some, yay!
Done that for me, yeah.
Should have.
So,
On one side of the room.
It should be like church, right?
so one of my changes in strategies is moving away from collections from large publishers that are like not very focused. Springer's a good example, and the other biggies are there too. And moving towards packages from small publishers that are highly subject focused. So American Society of Microbiology. I'm an agriculture school in food science, and we have yogurt making courses. So I want microbiology. Microbiology is everything. ASM Press publishes, I don't know, 25 books a year. I know all about microbiology, and I want them all. And there's some other small agricultural presses that I'm doing the same thing with, because I know that they're in my wheelhouse. I also know that they're small companies that I would like to support. They may or may not be for profit, and so that fits with the public good sort of idea. And so moving away from the large publisher packages because they're too diffuse. And if we look at the distribution of the Springer titles, for instance, that long tail is really long of zero-use titles. But there's less risk with a smaller package from a smaller publisher.
So we have a biology PhD that I support. It's only in microbiology, so a package that has things on dolphins and apes and algae isn't going to fit my needs. That doesn't mean that somebody might randomly want to click on, because people just click, right? But if I'm going to put money to it, it really has to be centered towards the curriculum or research. And so I buy what you're talking about. But I don't buy, even in a journal package, I have to be very careful in something like biology because we're just not teaching large-scale mammals or whales. It's because of money is driving a lot of it.
And I mean, we have to prove our own return on investment to our universities as well, right? So we're under a lot closer scrutiny than we were 20 years ago from our administrators.
So say we all.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say one more thing about that, which is that, there have been a few sessions so far at the conference that have talked about, the death of the idea of the comprehensive collection and making the collection responsive to and tailored to your local institution. And so that is one reason for the resurgence of firm ordering, is making sure that whatever sum of money you've been given this year, you can, at the end of the year, point to it and say, this is how we advanced the new degree programs in X, Y, and Z. This is how we helped researcher so-and-so get that grant and do the research. So I think that's part of the larger narrative that's going on there. Good thoughts?
I also have to let the meter run on some of these things like DDA and because all the classes aren't taught all the time on the same year. I'm sure that's the case of the librarians that are supporting this. So sometimes I don't get usage until the third year, maybe the fourth year. And a lot of times, you think it would be used in the first 5 years of owning it. And so I have to be really careful about how long I let a program run, and am I ready to cull what I want to buy out of the records that I've loaded. I don't do that, but somebody does it for me. So the length of it and what's in it and how much it costs, those are my issues, I think.
Yeah, we have a few minutes left, so on any topic, really, any audience questions for the panel, or for the audience, frankly?
I was all ready to answer a question about consortial use. I mean, we have consortial use within the UT system, and we get sometimes 3 to 4 to 5 years worth of program, and then we get to a little bit of money is put out there to purchase things for everyone, and then we get a little bit of money on our own to buy what was on our list that rose to the top of our usage, and then we have access to buy on our own budget what is left. It's very much different to do it on a consortial level than what we've been talking about. And so I have records going in and out, in and out, in and out, sometimes of the same titles, different kind of packages. Dear Groiner is a very good example for us. And it's really hard for seven academics and 6 medicals to agree on anything. So, and usage would be very different. So there's like, I think there's 6 medicals in the UT system, and they vote with some of the stuff as a cartel. And so I have faculty that are, quote me, sir.
We're being recorded.
Quite literally. I'm leaving town. So they might, so my faculty looks at the list of things that we get, and they go, well, why do you have so much material on bone injury or whatever? And it's because, you know, we've got mine as a consortium, but I'm always having to defend that. And I don't know if you have that or not, but we have a consortial deal with Elsevier. This year we have a deal with Taylor and Francis that includes other kinds of entities. And my DDA programs do much better with a consortial deal than they do individually. I've had to turn off deals from Sage and Prager, I think, because I get to the end of the year and the amount of material that's been used is not even what we pledged, which is different.
So it goes better on consortium
It
because
does,
there's more
because
use.
it goes better on use, and they can tell what school used it, and I can make my own decisions there. I get some things, of course, that I don't necessarily need. Want is a different thing. But the more usage or the more exposure something gets, the more time they have with the record, the better I have with making the decision as to what I do next year. So usage just sort of drives up the money.
No.
Did I say something wrong?
No, you sound ready to go.
You're not ready to go, okay.
Is there a question?
I think it's really good, a good conversation.
Yeah.
Another of the challenges with collections that we're finding is that we may get a big discount, so we save a bunch of money up front on buying the collection, but there's a huge amount of labor costs of actually putting the collection into circulation. So our acquisitions department needs to deal with invoicing and have the right number of titles and make sure that the invoice is right. And then our catalogers need records, and if it's a front list package, then they have to check in every month to make sure that there's new records. And then at the end of the year, oh, we didn't publish those 3 titles, what are we going to do about it? And so it actually, I don't want to do like the time labor analysis, because that's creepy and people don't like that. But the cost of actually managing a collection, especially a large ebook collection, is becoming really obvious as we look more closely at our workflows, because we have fewer people to do the work.
What do you think could change to make that less work?
I've got an answer.
I don't know the answer.
I think with Lenny, you said that you have a person who works specifically with the discovery services. We need more of that. We just need good metadata about what is in those packages and when they are available. But our strong preference, if it is a front list package, is to have that metadata sent by the publisher to, in our case, Ex Libris, and we will go into the community zone within Alma and turn that on, and then that surfaces those titles to our patrons. So if I learn that there's a huge lag in the community zone, or if the quality of the records there is very low, then I have to take it outside that workflow and hand it off to a person who's already overloaded with 20 different vendor loads that they're supposed to keep up with. And then they have to get the records, check the records, massage the records, upload the records, check for deletes every now and then.
Sarah,
Yeah.
what do you consider an acceptable lag time from the,
So the lag
From
time
the
that
purchase of the car.
I need, the lag time that I need
Yeah.
is, it needs to be in Alma
right,
when my selector sees it as a slip in GUI. Right, so that we don't buy it
right.
again. Because we already own it, because it came in through a package.
And they have to have time to do it. They have to have time, your cataloging staff has to have time to load.
Right. But if it's, if it's going into the community zone, it should be more or less instantaneous.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that, like, referencing metadata, that it's not adequate. What is typically missing that, I mean, I feel like I spend a lot of time working on metadata and trying to come up with keywords, and my system will limit how many keywords I can put in there. But what's usually missing? What do you need that the average publisher isn't putting out there?
Well, this is either going to be really exciting or really depressing, and I don't know which. But honestly, the thing we need is an accurate list of ISBNs and publishing dates.
Oh,
Call number would be really nice.
Accurate.
Yeah, I want.
And a call number.
And a call number, or that'd be great too.
So while I've been here, we're early adopter of Alma, and we have VE now, and they put out a feature called Journals by Category. And I had somebody run yesterday how many community zone records that we have do not have a call number. And it was something like 36,000 out of about 100,000 don't have a call number. So that means that feature that's in VE is not very accurate if I only am exploring. I'm not sure why anybody would want this here, but they were clicking on economics and a third of the journals weren't in that feature. I feel that's pretty strong negative.
We actually turned it off.
Well, they'll be turning it off on Monday.
The reason for that is because how the categories are identified is based on LC call numbers.
Yes.
Metadata, when there's no LC call numbers. Ex Libris is, I'm actually a serials cataloger.
Okay.
Ex Libris is notorious for not updating the current version of, updating records with the current version of a concert record, or with a revised record that might contain a call number if the previous version didn't. And also they're dealing with a lot of sources that are accepting KBART data rather than full-level cataloging data.
So I never thought that call numbers would be this important to like, first off, the A to Z list, journal list went away. And now I have this back by, I guess a general subject. Like, why would you go click on, give me all the journals you have on education? I want those people to be searching a database or talking to a librarian on how to search a database. Not just trying to figure out of the sea of so many thousand journals, which one they should pick.
In my opinion, that was a holdover from 15 years ago when we, at the University of Washington, we were automatically generating those subject lists, but that was when the scale was 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 e-journals total rather than 100,000, 150,000, 200,000. Or 20,000.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And the community zone records, somebody mentioned that. Sometimes they're just the title of the journal, and that's it. That's the whole entire bib record. And
so that's not even full-level KBART data. That's just the title list.
right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if how accurate it is. And that's a journal too.
do you all include the Library of Congress number with your metadata? Because I don't do that.
I believe we do. It's in our title management system. We should be sending it out to Firebrand and along with our ebook records. I feel like I want to go home and double check that.
I mean, we have the
I can't understand,
ISBN.
it's just you identify the identifier, this is the call number, and here's the value of it. Here's the ISBN, is what it is, here's the value of it, and it just all goes out together. That's what I would expect to happen.
Though from some of the conversation that I'm hearing, I wonder if it's getting stripped out when it's going into the K-bars and then getting delivered. I really don't know.
So we're out of time, and I think we're about to get thrown out. But thank you,